everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures with Andy. In our last episode, we dyed yarn for the April 2021 dye along with Kim Knits. And I still have all of this blue dye left over from that because I mixed up a little bit more than I needed, like twice as much. So today, we're going to use that to dye this. This is Highland Zebra 4-ply from Wool to Dye For, which is a 4-ply 100% Highland wool yarn from Wool to Dye For. And it's already got some black strands in it. And that's the whole idea behind it. Since I cannot easily get a true black using food coloring, I thought it'd be neat to play with this to have some actual true black in some yarn. And I think it'll look good with the blue. So I have not soaked this. I literally just pulled this out of the shipping bag. Not that I just received it, I've had it for a few months now. But I just never took it out of the bag because if I'm not getting ready to dye it, there's no need to take it out of the bag and risk exposing it potentially to moths or other things that might harm the wool, especially since this is not superwash. Instead of soaking it, I'm just going to go ahead and put this yarn into the crock pot with the yarn dry. Chad just now turned on and plugged in the crock pot for me. So the water's still cold, and that's fine, because I want to try to get, it's still probably going to have some tonal qualities to it, but I want to try to get as close to a solid as I can. I'm not going to do any dip dyeing or resist or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and put the dye in the water, in the crock pot, put the yarn in, put the lid on it, leave it for 45 minutes maybe. I do want to keep a really close eye on the temperature though, because this is not superwash. So I don't want this to boil and start agitating because that could risk felting the wool. So first, gonna put the dye in. Put the dye in there. And it is a very, very pretty blue. There's also no vinegar in this water yet. This is just straight tap water. I'll add the vinegar later. I apparently have some crashing out on my dye, but that's okay. And to minimize the amount of blue that ends up on my fingers, I'm going to use my bamboo tongs to push this down. And I'm just going to put the lid on this, let the water come up to temperature, and then let it cool back down to room temperature again. I'll see you at that point. All right, it's been about an hour, and the water is warmed up nicely. It's hot, it's not boiling, it's just hot. We still have a lot of color in the dye bath though. So at this point, I'm going to use tongs because, like I said, the water's hot. I'm going to ask Chad to hold this for me. You can see that we really don't have a lot of color in our yarn yet because we have no acid yet. Okay, pull it all the way up out of the water for me. Thank you. Again, I do not have measuring spoons over here. This is a cup, so I'm going to put about a quarter in here. Put some vinegar in. Mix it all up. And if you want to go ahead and just lower that back down, sweetie. Thank you, dear. Watch your fingers, that's very hot. And I'm going to let this sit here for another 15-20 minutes and we'll take another look. All right, it's been about an hour. Our water is not boiling, but it is definitely steamy and hot. And our dye bath is mostly cleared. There's a little hint of blue still left in here, not a whole lot. I did add a second equal amount of vinegar from what I added before, about 15 minutes ago, and that helped it clear quite a bit. But at this point, I am gonna go ahead and unplug the crock pot. And I will just let this cool down overnight, get back to room temperature. If it's still showing a hint of blue in the dye bath in the morning, then I'll probably grab a yarn mop, toss it and a little bit more vinegar in there, and put it through another heat set round just to make sure the dye is in there really good. And here's our finished yarn. Now, before I go into my standard rambling on about what I think of the yarn and how it turned out and everything, because I do tend to ramble, I want to make a correction. In the introduction, I said that this was Wool to Die For's Zebra Highland 4-ply yarn. And I said that because that's what the label says, Zebra Highland 4-ply, right? But as I was knitting up the swatch for this, I'm like, but this doesn't seem like a 4-ply. This seems like it has only 2 plies. Am I missing something here? Right? So there's just 2 plies here. I looked at it really closely and I'm like, what am I missing? So I actually went out to the Wool to Die For site. I pulled up my order there and I did a search for the SKU number. And no, it is a 2-ply. I don't know why the label says it's a 4-ply. The yarn does not appear to be a 4-ply. I don't know. But I did at least want to clarify for the video that no, this is apparently a 2-ply yarn. I couldn't even find where they have a Zebra Highland 4-ply yarn over on Wool to Die For. I imagine somebody just typed it in wrong. Not a big deal for me, but just be aware of it if you're ordering on their site. You're probably getting a 2-ply instead of a 4-ply. If you need a 4-ply, maybe email or chat with them, contact them somehow and talk to them about it and see if they have a 4-ply, because this is not. Anyway, on to the result of our leftover dye-in. We got a really nice pretty blue. As you can see, it is a tonal. It's definitely not a solid. We've got some really light patches here, and then like over here we've got darker. I mean, it's all over a very light blue, but it's just not a solid color. I think I would have needed a much larger dye bath for the amount of yarn this is, and probably more dye to be able to get this solid. Plus, I did not want to move this around too much in the dye bath and risk felting it. Which brings me to the second thing that I want to mention. It might seem like this has felted a little because it's sticking to itself. I really don't think it has, because this is a skein that I just pulled out of the bag that's completely undyed, and you can see it kind of sticks to itself some too. That's where I've been pulling apart, but you can see it kind of sticks to itself some too. Maybe not as much as this is doing, but yarn can kind of do that after you dye it. So, but it's not felted because it can very easily get pulled apart. I don't have as much experience dyeing non-superwash wool, so I'm really kind of nervous about doing that and accidentally felting it. The water temperature never got to like a rolling boil, and I did not agitate it a lot. I just swished it through the water once or twice, poked it down with the tongs, and just left it alone. So there wasn't enough agitation to have felted it. And if it was truly felted, I would not be able to pull this apart like that. I would have to fight and fight. It would be tearing. And no, this is just sticking to itself. Not a problem to knit with, which I can show you because here's our swatch. And yeah, it knitted up pretty good. I gotta tell you, I swear between the Kim Knits April 2021 dye along that I initially mixed up this dye for, and the way those two skeins just kind of surprised me on which one I liked and which one I didn't while they were drying and after they worked up. And now this one, this has just been the let's throw Andy for a loop dye session. I wasn't expecting the black to do these stripes like this. I was expecting it to either be all throughout because it looks pretty consistent. You got a few places in the yarn where there's not, but it looks pretty consistent throughout there. So I was expecting this black to be, you know, mostly just all over, and with the blue just blended in there as an all over, or at least to just be consistent stripes. But I wasn't expecting it to do this. But as I was knitting this, I'm like, well, I guess now I can see why they call it zebra, because turn it sideways. This is kind of like a zebra stripes, which don't go all the way around the zebra. They get to the belly and they fade out. So it just took me by surprise. But I do like how this worked up. It just, even though it's a tonal with these really light blue patches in the skein itself and then these darker patches, worked up, it blends together beautifully. And I think this black gives it just a really interesting, I can't really say texture, but it's got a really interesting look to it. And I definitely like it. I definitely want to play with this yarn some more. This is my first experience with the Highland wool, and I'm not sure yet what I think about it. I'd have to knit up a whole project to really be able to make up my mind. But they do also have this zebra type of yarn base in other fibers, so including like a superwash nylon sock blend. So I'm going to have to pick up some more of that. Shh, don't tell Chad, because I've got boxes of untied yarn. But I'm gonna have to pick up some more of that so I can play with it too. But I think, you know, just for having some leftover dye and putting it all in the crock pot and turning the heat on and just letting it go, I think we got a really nice skein of yarn. Anyway, I hope you had fun dyeing the skein of yarn with me. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, go for it. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications so you never miss anything that I do here. I love having y'all join me for these adventures and just seeing where it takes us. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on our next adventure. Bye!